listening to the Inside Track on Real Estate with the Dekker Team, and you are in for a treat today because this is kind of like two shows in one. If you listen or watch from 9 to 9:30 on Friday mornings at 99.1, Lynn Fraser is hosting the Financial Fitness Show. And then we host the Inside Track on Real Estate from 9:30 to 10. So the amazing thing today is I have Lynn Fraser with me, so welcome.
Hello. It's good to be here.
It is. It's always good to be here.
I'm not used to being on this side. I'm usually doing the interviewing, so this is a new...
And I took everything away from Lynn to ensure that she didn't take back the role of the interviewing.
I know, this can be fun.
And so she's going to be interviewed. So she is here to do a really unique show, actually a neat show. I love it. It's financial fitness with real estate. Because really every day what happens for Lynn is when people come in to talk to her about whether it's a mortgage or whether it's getting a handle on their debt, any sort of area in relation to financial fitness, real estate becomes part of the conversation.
It has to. It is a huge piece of the puzzle, right? And so if real estate is done well, then it can be a real inhibitor. It can be a real benefit in terms of becoming financially fit.
Inhibitor if you don't do it right.
If you don't do it well, you're in huge trouble.
Yeah, because sometimes we get calls from you saying these people got to sell now, and they only just bought.
Yeah,
and that's sad, and we didn't help them do that. We make sure, and nor did Lynn help them get into that mortgage, because part of the whole financial fitness piece for you is making sure that people actually are financially fit.
They must be financially fit going in, or the mortgage and the house is a real problem. So yeah, we put it all together. So it's good. That's why we work together.
Yeah, it is, and it works well.
Yeah.
And so home ownership, because it's a huge piece of the financial picture, is why they're coming to you. Whether it's that first house, whether it's the second, so now your true investment property that you're actually not living in, because they're all investments, and you want to make wise decisions even with the first, except it's a little more emotionally engaged because you want to make sure it suits you. So it has different criteria than the second, third, and fourth properties and so on, and even vacation properties and those kinds of things. And yet, Lynn looks at that picture and she does it reasonably conservatively.
I do.
Right?
I do.
And that's because at the bottom end of the whole thing, if foundationally it's really tight, you're doing them more harm than good in the long run.
There's a lot involved in knowing when to buy, what to buy, and making the decisions around your home are not just about buying a house. There's a whole lot more to it. It's a whole lot about your family, about your future, where you're going, what's important to you.
And where are you at in life? Are you at the beginning of your income potential, or are you at the end of your income potential in terms of increases and stuff like that? And how many years do you have remaining and all that? So what we're going to do today is something a little bit different. Lynn has come up with, from a financial fitness perspective, the 8 deadly mistakes that sometimes are made or can be made, and basically what the remedy is so that you don't make those mistakes, right? And so I'm going to just give Lynn what they are, because she told me what they are, so I can feed them back to her now. And then she's going to expand on them for you so that you have some clarity and you don't make these mistakes, because she's about the financial fitness piece.
Exactly.
So one is buying before you're ready.
Often, everyone wants to buy their first home, right? From the time they get married or thinking about getting married as they become adults, they understand that buying a home is one of the first pieces of adulthood. And so they're eager to get into their first home. If a couple is not ready,
or an individual, because we have lots of people that are not a couple. I know my kids were 20 when they bought their first houses. Now they had a little bit of background support from mom and dad, and that's all they'd ever lived. So the average 20-year-old may not be ready.
That's
and
true.
Yet
they may
be. Right. So buy before they're ready. What?
Buy before they're ready can mean a number of things. One, they may not have any idea of the true costs of buying a home.
Okay.
Right. And they may not have sufficient savings. They may not have a credit rating well established yet. They may not have the job stability that's going to be required in order to maintain the home. It's one thing to buy a home, but you want to be able to stay there for a period of time. So buying before you're ready means it can be disastrous. So in order to make sure you're ready, you want to have sound counsel. You want to have someone that's going to go through a budget with you so that you're really clear on what your costs of home ownership are going to be. You want to have someone that's forward-looking with you so you can anticipate the costs that are coming up. And so that's one of the things I like about us working together, is because we both do that with our clients to make sure that they're ready from a financial perspective, from an emotional perspective, and that they're forward-looking.
Right, and so part of the whole budget or spending plan, I prefer that word.
I do too.
We both do. So the spending plan, Lynn actually spends some time going through that with her clients, our clients, because often they're mutual, ensuring that they can in fact spend the way they need to spend and still manage the house and everything else they want to accomplish. And sometimes it means prioritizing.
And what's exciting about that for many people is that it takes away the fear. Yeah. Because they know that before they sign on the dotted line, they already know what it's going to cost to live in that home before they get there. And they're confident in their ability to do it. Yeah. And if not, it's a wait. If not, it's a wait. Let's work together so that you can become clear on what you're going to need and know that you've got it before you make the decision.
Right. So there's really not a time that's too early to call myself or Lynn.
Never.
When you're in the process. So we're saying buy before you're ready is a deadly mistake. Being prepared, though, is the remedy.
The sooner the better. Yeah. If you're 18 years old and you're thinking about, I know at some point I'm going to want to buy a home, call us. Yeah. We can sit down and provide the education that's necessary to allow you to be well ready,
and well prepared. Basically, it's a plan.
It is.
Yeah.
And we can address the credit issues. We can address the savings issues for the down payment. All of those things can be put in place well in advance, so you're ready.
Yeah, which is fun. And now another deadly mistake is buying too much house, squeezing life. Trying to squeeze life out of a house, and you can't. Yeah. So explain that one, because that's a big challenge.
It is. It's a lot about preparation again. One of the challenges, I think, is that people will spend a lot of time looking on the internet or looking at houses before they're pre-approved, before they have met with someone like me that's actually going to work through a budget with them, and then fall in love with a house that they really can't afford. And then it's hard to go back. Would you agree?
Oh, it's so hard, because once you've seen, and often, I just was out this weekend actually with a lovely couple who I'd met through other clients that we had a great time with several times now. And so she said, if you're going to buy, you've got to call Yetta. So she did, and we had a great time looking at property. And yet I really sensed after having a pretty quick conversation that it probably wasn't the right time. And if it was, a few things needed to be put in order. And so rather than going to look at a whole lot more homes, potentially in a price range that doesn't make sense, that really would be squeezing the very life out of this family, I said, please, and I had already urged when I spoke on the phone with the family to please call in and sit down with her and just go through the numbers, go through the spending plan, look at it from a big picture. Because if you're already finding the home you're in now is a challenge to maintain financially, then going to another one that's more expensive is only going to exacerbate the problem.
That's a deadly mistake.
It is a deadly mistake.
It is a deadly
mistake. So, would it be nice? Could I encourage sometimes people to buy something when they're not ready? Sure, I could. Except why on earth would I? Because I really want them to be around for life, not just to help with that one transaction. So Lynn is in the conversation mode. And if the money's there, that's perfect. We'll move ahead. And if not, we'll build a plan for it.
So first of all, we're going to determine how much house you can afford with the life that you want to lead. Right? It's a life that you want to live.
Yeah.
Right? And then you find the home that fits into that instead of the other way around.
Right. Because if you find a home that you fall in love with, and now Lynn tells you, really, or it's not even so much Lynn telling you as you discovering with Lynn that price point just isn't sensible, right? And then you discover you can't have it. The challenge is constantly when you're out looking, you compare everything back to the one you can't have or the one you've chosen not to have.
So it goes back to the first conversation really about being prepared. Meet with me first. Let's determine what kind of life it is that you are called to live. And then we can establish what kind of home will fit into that. And then you will help find it.
Yeah, and we listen. We don't push you into a price range you can't afford. We do try to get Lynn to give us two numbers. The ideal number and the number that you still could work with.
That's right.
Because sometimes the home that you want doesn't fit the ideal. And so we have to reassess something, either give up something in a home, but that leads us to another deadly mistake, and that is short-sized, not enough house for the future.
Yeah. Yeah, because you can fall in love with a home now that looks wonderful for your family. It's pretty, it's well decorated, it's in a nice area, you love it. Perhaps you're downtown and you're close to work, but you're planning on having a family in a year's time, and you know that it's not going to be large enough for you. So unless you're going to be in a home for a period of time, it doesn't make sense.
Right.
So anticipating what your needs are going to be over the next 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years is a part of the picture, I would think, Yetta.
Oh, it is. It's a deadly mistake not to think into the future and buy too little now.
Do you know, I saw a statistic recently that, and it's a U.S. statistic, that...
They translate pretty good, though.
Pretty close. The average family will own 5 homes.
Right.
That's a lot of homes.
It is. And some own 6, 7, 8, 9. That's just the average.
That's right. And so there's huge expense, huge cost to making those constant transitions. Now, that's a whole different picture if you own 5, 6, 7, or 8 homes because you've got investment properties. Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, we're talking about moving that many times. Taking a house and switching property is what that statistic was talking about, right?
So how long would you recommend someone expects to be in a home to make it worthwhile?
It depends on the home, because there are the odd flip situations where we can be in a home for a year or two where we're putting in our sweat equity and we've kind of given our house a job and given ourselves a bit of a job in doing that work. And so there can be the occasional situation where short term is ideal, right? Most of the time, though, you want to be in 5 to 7 years at least.
Yeah, I would be.
I mean, I'm in my homes usually 12, 15 years. I mean, I own other property that are investment properties that I'm not moving in and out of. However, my principal residence that I'm allowing the equity to accrue within, I'm attempting to buy something into the future that is good for that 10, 12, 15 years. Because the cost of moving is daunting.
It is.
And the experience of moving is a big deal. It's one of the big, 5 stressors in life.
Now,
and so
I would think a first-time buyer,
that's
maybe a little
different.
bit shorter,
yes,
right? Because
absolutely.
if you do it well,
yes,
a first-time buyer can get into a home, have a short amortization, really, really work on getting the equity built up in that house quickly, which is going to allow them to get into their family home.
Correct. And so you're right. Our first one was 3 years. Right, the first one we were ever in was a 3-year journey, and that made sense. So I forgot about that. That was a long time ago, Lynn. But thanks for that. and then we got into what was a family home.
And it's good.
And then, so sometimes it takes 2. Right. So if you're just joining us now on the Inside Track on Real Estate with the Dekker Team, I am here today with Lynn Fraser, and we're doing financial fitness with real estate, which is kind of cool, being financially fit and utilizing your real estate to do that. And what does it take to do that? So we're on number 4 of the 8 deadly mistakes. And Lynn is addressing most of it, and I'm interjecting when I feel the need, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. So buying from a salesperson that is working for someone other than you.
And what I'm talking about there, Yetta, is when you drive by a sign on a property and decide that you want to see that property and contact the name of the person on that sign. To me, that person is ideally working for the seller.
Let's hope that they are.
Well, I think legally they have to, right?
Right.
Contractually.
So we're still saying, contractually, absolutely.
And so they probably don't have the best interest of the buyer at heart. Certainly they don't know the buyer, they don't know the buyer's situation, they haven't spent a lot of time providing counsel. a real estate investment, of it, whether it's your first home, your 10th home, or for an investment property, is a huge investment. So you want to work with a professional that has your best interest in heart.
Right. So somebody that is going to hopefully know you before you find the right house.
Exactly. Because it's not just about a house. They need a professional like you is going to provide counsel that's going to help them make the decisions that are necessary for good financial decisions as well as good family decisions. Is their family going to fit with this home long term? And that's why when I wanted to buy a home, I bought from you.
I know, I remember.
Because
Awesome.
I knew you were going to take care of those needs.
Yeah, it wasn't just about getting you the house that I had for sale.
No. And it wasn't just about the financial situation either, because there was a whole lot more involved. So working with you as a professional, listening to your counsel, is going to make a huge difference when you're buying or selling. But particularly when you're buying, don't just contact the first person you see and work with them. That is a deadly mistake.
It can be, because you're not... The cost to you is no more to have somebody that's actually representing you. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to buying, it's not like you're writing a check. And so therefore, you owe it to yourself, I think is what I've heard you say many, many times, to have somebody that actually is looking out after you.
Absolutely.
As a buyer. Mm-hmm. Perfect. Number 5, deadly mistake, wrong location.
Now, this is one that you can speak to even more than I can, Yetta. But I know from my perspective that wrong location could be wrong for today. It could be wrong for tomorrow because there's things happening in that area. It could be wrong because I don't have any children right now, but I'm planning a family, and it's not going to be a good location for my family down the road. So there are also some areas of the city and neighborhood where the prices just don't increase as much as what you would want. Am I correct?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
we do a show pretty much every month, and the one we did this month was actually comparing certain areas that you would think may not be so ideal and yet turned out to be very ideal. And so it's not always what you think it is either. So asking those questions and then choosing a location that really does meet not just today's needs, but the needs down the road. And sometimes it's okay to buy a property that has an adverse location factor, provided that one works for you. And you understand where resale plays back into that.
Sure, you may buy based on convenience because it's close to work and it works really well for your lifestyle today, right, where the increase in value isn't as big a consideration.
Right, yeah.
But
there's lots of things to think about.
You need to know.
You need to know. And so 6, financial packages that are in the best interest of the bank or the financial institution that's giving you the mortgage.
Yeah.
Or you're getting counsel from. That's a deadly mistake.
Yes. And I would say over the past 5 years, maybe 10, one of the greatest trends that I've seen with financial institutions is putting people into mortgages that have no end. They're called lines of credit. And they are more and more common. They are sold to clients with the idea that it's convenient. And yes, it is convenient. It's convenient to pay down, but more so, it's convenient to have it go up. And that's where we'll see clients that have been in a home for 7 or 8 years and have half the equity they should have because they've been on a line of credit. Or when the bank sets up the mortgage, they also make sure that there's a line of credit and a visa attached. And there's danger in that, particularly in moving into a new house. There's all kinds of desire to get furniture and make it look different. And so it's easy to have those lines of credit and credit cards run up pretty quick. So you just want to really have a good, clear picture and a good financial package together, so you know your strategy to get your mortgage paid down quickly, so that because you're building your equity for your next home and the next home and the next home,
or for your future, if not
exactly.
for another home.
Yeah,
it's still equity that can work for you.
Yeah.
And often, at least I've heard from a financial package, that's a piece of it for sure. People get caught up in the interest rate and kind of forget about everything else.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I mean, there are times, for example, a variable rate sounds very attractive today, but it may not be attractive for very long. We don't know that for sure. But sometimes the short-term mortgages sound very attractive. And sometimes you'll hear marketing packages from financial institutions where they talk about a mortgage with a variable rate and a cap. But they really aren't incentives. They really aren't put together for the client. They really are designed to enhance the bottom line of the bank. So you just need to be careful.
Well, and even penalties or discharge fees.
Huge.
Discharge privileges, I guess, is what we call them. And they have costs attached to them, though. And they're not all the same.
The big five, the banks, prepayment penalties are almost double mortgage companies. But you couldn't tell that from a contract. There's no way of knowing that in your contract because it looks the same. And so if you're not working with someone that's giving you other options, you won't know.
And the concern is more that you don't even know that that's what you've just committed to, an interest differential payment versus a 3-month interest penalty. And those are vastly different things. They can be tens of thousands apart.
But the hard thing with that is the interest rate differential is calculated differently from institution to institution.
Absolutely.
It's worded exactly the same. So the consumer has no knowledge going in, unless they're working with a professional like myself that's going to lay it out for them so they know, so they can compare apples to apples.
Because more people than not, my understanding is, break their existing mortgage.
That's true.
Right? The closed mortgages or the mortgages with privileges to be able to discharge them, so they're not fully closed, but they're locked for a term and a time and have discharge fees associated. Those mortgages, more often than not, people actually change homes and change their situation before that mortgage would actually renew naturally.
That's right.
And so it matters.
It matters a lot. It matters a lot. It matters more than the interest rate going in.
Yeah. It's crazy. So that is a huge thing to avoid. Right? Mm-hmm. Doing that. Mm-hmm. Another deadly mistake is making the wrong improvements.
That's back to you. Right? I would say wrong improvements.
Well, you see them all the time.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, so they're back to you, girl, because I know you call me sometimes going, they did this, and this. Does it change the value?
No. In many cases, the improvements you want to make, well, you really need to know, are you making the improvements because you want to live in the home and though it's going to improve your lifestyle? Or are you making the improvements because you're going to be in the home for a short period of time and you want to increase your equity? Or is it a combination of both? And there is some money that is very well spent in a home, then you will get it back, and some of it you won't. Mm-hmm. So I see the downside of that. And in my mind, a whole lot of money spent on any kind of credit, any kind of consumer credit, it's not wise.
Right. So first of all, you want to have cash for those from
Absolutely.
Your perspective, and I would concur with that thought, that if we're going to spend money on renovations, we don't want to have to borrow the money. So that makes it a bad improvement right there. Mm-hmm. And then secondarily, we're talking that, as an example, I have somebody right now taking out ceramic to put in click flooring in a lower level, and they're doing that for their own lifestyle. They need to understand, though, that they've not increased the value of that house 10 cents.
No.
Because
and have they decreased it? Perhaps?
Even perhaps. Right. Yeah. And so even some improvements that you'll spend money on will actually devalue a property. So just be aware of that. I mean, if you're doing it for your enjoyment and you're saying it's warmer and I prefer it and you know you're going to stay there a long time, well, you can kind of do what you want. Just being aware, though, not to make that deadly mistake without being informed.
So that's where you come in. When you look at a home with a client, you can tell them or advise them as to what is a good idea and what is not.
Absolutely. You know. And it really depends on how long you're going to, so much of it has to do with how long you're going to stay here. That's 3/4 of the answer. And delayed maintenance is a different conversation, because if you're not maintaining a property, you're actually decreasing the value of what it is worth. It's about maintaining value sometimes, right? So deadly mistake number 8, taking on projects you're not qualified to do well.
I love to work around a house. I do. There's all kinds of things.
Yeah, you're handy.
I am handy.
Yeah.
And over the years, well, I had to be.
Right.
I had to be. I had duplexes and I was single, and that's what I did.
You had to do what you had to do.
I did what I had to do.
She can fix cars, she can fix houses, she can do it all.
I can fix finances.
Yeah, exactly.
But there are some projects that I would definitely not take on, and neither should you. There are some projects that none of us should take on except for someone that is highly qualified, because it's just going to cost you a whole lot of money and devalue your property.
Right, and I can just think of a property I showed this very weekend where the renovations were expensive renovations. They just weren't quite right around the edges. And the client decided not to move forward with the house, not because they didn't love it, but because they were concerned about what else isn't done right.
What corners were cut.
What corners were cut. And I think it was just somebody that really wasn't qualified to do the work. Yeah.
So that's a big piece.
It is. So if you want to get financially fit with real estate, you want to connect with Lynn. And her number is 613-520-4157, 613-520-4157, or you can email her at
Lynn@morethanenough.ca. So Lynn, Lynn, at morethanenough.ca.
Yeah. Or you can connect with us, info@dekkerteam.com, 613-860-4663. Now, I do have a property that is a gem and a amazing value. It's only $250,000. It's a single family.
Where do you find those anymore?
There's one in Canada.
Very good.
And it's just on the outskirts of Canada. It's an older home. It's a century home. So you're going to want to enjoy charming character. 3-bedroom, an addition on the back, which is a bit of a family room area, and nice yard, ideally situated close to everything.
Sounds wonderful.
Yeah, it really is. And what an opportunity. Instead of a little tiny townhome, you get a single family home.
I like it.
Yeah, so do I. So if you're interested in that or anything else that is out there or would like to see it, you know how to reach us. And if you would like to get counsel, not even just on real estate in relation to financial fitness, but any financial fitness, you do want to connect with Lynn. And she does host a monthly workshop.
It's a financial fitness workshop.
As well as a wealth building workshop.
We do.
And so there's lots of opportunities to learn and get a good general knowledge. And then there's opportunities for consultations one-on-one after you've got the basic knowledge.
Check out our website, morethanenough.ca.
Perfect. Thank you for joining us on the Inside Track on Real Estate. And thank you, Lynn.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
All right. We'll talk to you soon.